Yo guys, welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Today we're going to be going over the top 30 hypercharges. We're going to be ranking them from worst to best, and this is my opinion. Obviously a lot can change based off other things here, but yeah, this is what I think is the list. So yeah, make sure you leave a like and subscribe for more future tier lists. Number 30, dead last on this list, is going to be Tick. I think Tick is by far the worst hypercharge in the game, to the fact that when you get the hypercharge, you're going to be getting little to no value here, because most of the time the ticket gets destroyed. The radius of the mines exploding is little to none, and yeah, you just get basically no value from it. And also, on top of that, it takes just such a long time to charge it here. I think in competitive matches, you don't get a single tick head for the most part. Definitely on ladder, you don't get a single tick head. The game ends before you do. So yeah, they definitely need to tweak the hypercharge charge rate on tick, because you just don't get it at all. Alright guys. Number 29. Number 29 is Brock. I know a lot of you will agree with me on this, because everyone knows Brock's super with hypercharge is useless. It does little to no damage compared to a normal Brock super. If you go with the extra rocket star power, where you get more rockets in your super, that's way more valuable than the hypercharge itself here. So yeah, it's kind of a bit deflating when you pop your super and your rockets do less damage compared to what it would do with just a star power change here. So yeah, not quite sure how that makes sense here. They definitely need to tweak the damage there a little bit here as well. And yeah, the Brock star power is not it. The only good thing about the Brock one is that you get it quite frequently. But again, the super is meant to be the main part of it, getting supercharged and like going crazy. But the Brock super is just not crazy, so that's why it's going to be 29 on this list. Sprout is going to be number 28. Sprout is going to be a very good brawler in terms of damage. You know, it speeds him up a little bit, it gives him a bit of damage here, which is very nice here. But the super, just in general, you get no value. The only time you get value is in heist. In heist, you can do like a war trick where you just get like 50% on safe, and that's also like very rare to do. Getting that amount of space and time to execute that is going to take a very long time here. But yeah, for the most part, you don't get too much value, if not any value, unless you're playing heist. And I think a hypercharge that only gives you value on one game mode is a pretty bad hypercharge. Like, Sprout can easily be last here, but you know, the default attacks when you get the stat boost from Sprout and Brock is still pretty good. That's why Tick is last. Number 27 is going to be Gene. Now, Gene's hypercharge looks so crazy, I'm telling you. You know, 3 pulls, pulling them in. The pulls are so fast as well, but I've seen like no one hits it. Like, I don't know what it is with the Gene hypercharge, but like, you basically miss the pull a majority of the time. I don't know how it works. I need to test it out myself a lot in just scrims or whatever. But yeah, every time I've seen a pro player in a competitive match trying to do a triple hypercharge Gene pull, you just miss all 3 magic hands here. I don't know if the mythic gear is active with the pull. I don't know if it's a glitch, but yeah, it's not good. You take a pretty long time to get it as well, unless you're playing against a good matchup, like against the tanks, where you're just able to charge it a little bit quicker here. But yeah, popping the hypercharge is quite useless with the super here. Again, the stat buff is very nice here, but if you're using the hypercharge just for a stat buff, you know the hypercharge is not that good. Number 26 is going to be Charlie. Charlie, I think, is probably one of the best brawlers in the game. It's so versatile, like it always has been. I don't preach enough about how good Charlie really is. And the hypercharge is a bit disappointing. It's not too bad here. Obviously, you got to hit your cocoon and then some spiders spawn with it. I think it's, you know, it's a great little touch on the super here. It's not too strong. It's not that bad either. But compared to the other hypercharges, there's so many more broken hypercharges on this list that, yeah, the Charlie hypercharge is going to be very low here. And yeah, again, I don't think it's a bad hypercharge. I think it's a nice little touch that spiders spawn in, protecting the egg a little bit. It's a cool concept, but the concept is not as crazy as the other 25+ brawlers on this list here. 25 is going to be Pearl. Pearl, I think, is a very underrated brawler in the meta. It can be very good if you know how to use it correctly. I think the fire DPS is crazy. You can pretty much get an instantaneous kill on anyone if you use the fire correctly here. And I think with the hypercharge, you can deal so much damage here. It's not that strong, it's not that weak as well. I think it's just pretty similar to Charlie. Like, it's a nice little addition. They just get super crazy speed, and the DPS is probably one of the highest in the game here in terms of one little burst and that person is dead. And I don't know how much it does to tanks here if you get like a full tank of flame charged up, but I'm pretty sure it's like an insane amount of damage here. But again, it's just not as crazy as the other hypercharges on this list. That's why it's been ranked a little bit lower than all the others. Next up is going to be Miko. Now, this hypercharge is actually really good. You get a nice little stun when you land here. I think it's a good addition. You deal a pretty good amount of damage here once you do land. The only thing about the Miko hypercharge is that when you pop it, you only get the stun effect. Like, they need to make the duration longer so that you can pop it, and then when you land, you still have the hypercharge effect. Because yeah, when you get the stun, which is great. I think if you didn't get the stun, it would be quite criminal having a hypercharge like that. But yeah, you can only just, you know, pop your Hypercharge, pop your super, and then when you land, your Hypercharge stat boost goes away. So they definitely need to make it last a little bit longer, so you just get a few more seconds to make use of the Hypercharge. And I think getting Miko's Hypercharge takes a quite long time here, and that's not good. But I don't think the concept of the Hypercharge is too bad here, so nothing needs changing there. Just extend the Hypercharge rate, the duration a little bit longer, and make the charge rate a little bit easier, and I think this Hypercharge can be very, very good. Next up is going to be Macy. Now, everyone knows Macy is not really good in the meta, and the Hypercharge is like kind of cool, you know. You get like a great burst. It's like the spike pin cushion gadget here, where you just burst out spikes from all angles here. That's basically what the Macy Hypercharge is, and it's cool and all. Like, it's very good on the high save. I can get so much damage with it as well, but you just don't get as much value as on a brawler. I think just, you know, having the super and then just having the damage boost is what carries Macy the most. And like, maybe you hit one burst on each brawler, which is, you know, not too bad as well. But I think the speed boost and the stat boost is really what makes Macy's Hypercharge a lot better than all of these as well. And again, the super concept is not too bad. It's just Macy, it just doesn't make Macy a good brawler, and that's why Macy is very, very bad in this meta here. It's quite low in terms of brawler ratings, probably like a C tier brawler, or maybe even the lowest here. It just doesn't get any value. There's too many stuns in the game, and you'll see a lot on the list here that any brawlers that just get their Hypercharge stunned out is going to be a pretty poor Hypercharge to have in the game here. So yeah, that's why Macy's going to be 23 on this list. Heading over to the next one. Next one is going to be Crow. Now, I think Crow is a really decent brawler. I think it's pretty underrated, similar to Pearl here, but yeah, just a lot more underrated than Pearl there. I think Crow is just an amazing, well-rounded brawler. It counters a lot of brawlers on this list here. The Hypercharge is insane in Heist. I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best Hypercharges in Heist you can have. But again, you can't have a brawler that's only good in one game mode in terms of Hypercharge here. And even though the Hypercharge is really good, like, if you can get like a 1 kill on it, it's not a team wipe type of Hypercharge as well. Like, you can get positioning, and normally when you land, you just get a trade-off as well, because yeah, Crow is just so squishy, has no HP. Like, Piper 2-shots it for the most part. You can get like Shelly supered when you land as well. You get a trade with it, but I think the Hypercharge needs to give you a little bit more protection, that when you land, you survive a little bit and get a few extra shots in. But yeah, the super for the most part is purely suicide. But again, like I said, on the save, it's one of the best Hypercharges in the game. Next up is going to be Colt. I think Colt is an amazing brawler. The Hypercharge is a nice little addition, making the super a lot easier to hit. But again, it's not a guaranteed hit. You just got to keep that in mind here. It's not guaranteed. It does crazy damage on safe as well. Again, it's a good heist brawler. You see a lot of these brawlers, they're very, very good on heist, because it just multiplies the damage by a crazy amount here. It gets you speed and gets you up the map quicker. I think Colt's Hypercharge is good. It makes it easier to hit shots, and it's just absolutely crazy here. But again, Colt is still a very hard brawler to make use of, and I think the Hypercharge rate isn't too crazy. You still got to clip many, many shots to get your Hypercharge as well. If they adjusted the Supercharge rate on the Hypercharge, I think it would be a lot better, and it's one of the most balanced Hypercharge, I'd say. It's not crazy, it's not underwhelming here. I think it's a pretty good place to have it at. Number 20 is going to be Shelly. Now, Shelly, when it first got released, the Hypercharge looked a bit crazy, and I think as more Hypercharges got released, the Hypercharge became a lot more underwhelming here. Like, the super radius is crazy, which is good, and you get so much damage if you go into people's spaces. But yeah, the meta's developed a lot over the time here. You have brawlers like Sandy, Nita, Surge that are quite meta, and they're all pretty much hard counter Shelly here. So yeah, the meta's not favored well into Shelly. The Hypercharge doesn't really help give it advantage over those brawlers as well. So yeah, it's going to be a bit underwhelming to have in the meta. Shelly's Hypercharge is still good though. I think once the meta shifts over to a more tank heavy meta and a more mid-range meta where you just get more value here, Shelly's Hypercharge will instantly boost up the list here, because it is quite easy to get. I think not easy, but like, you know, if you know how to use your clay pigeons, for example, you'll get your Hypercharge in a fair amount of time here. But yeah, the meta is just not suited for Shelly. Similar to Macy, I guess. Like, Shelly and Macy, when their first Hypercharge got released, they were crazy in the meta, but now they're just very underwhelming because the Hypercharge is not as good as the others, and the meta is just completely shifted from a tank only meta. Number 19 is going to be Ball. Now, I think Ball is a pretty good brawler. I think, again, it's one of those underrated brawlers that you can just fit in, especially if you're playing in draft. Not necessarily on ladder. Like, on ladder it can be decent, but again, playing tanks on ladder can be torture sometimes, or you get a free matchup, depends. But yeah, in draft you can get some good matchups here. If the other team has like a Jackie or like a Buster, it's pretty much a free ball game, and you can use the Hypercharge to go crazy. You should get it frequently if playing against a tank or something very easy to kill. And obviously, Ball's best game mode is going to be Heist. Again, it's another Heist brawler. You can get so much safe damage as well, and the Hypercharge just amplifies damage by a large amount here. But again, it's low on this list due to the fact that it's mainly good in heist, and if you get the right matchup, which you can get, but it's very difficult to get, it's going to be, you know, usable in some modes, but for the most part, it's only high, similar to Colt, similar to Crow. You can't use it anywhere else, really. You get little value with the Hypercharge. Number 18 is going to be Bell. Now, I think Bell is such a versatile brawler. It's one of the most picked brawlers in the game, I think. I think it's probably on the top 5, somewhere along the lines there, at least in competitive. And then on ladder, I feel like it's always consistent on most maps here. But yeah, Bell is a super good brawler. It's so versatile in terms of it's like really good against long range, you know, if you can know how to hit your shots. The traps make it good so that medium range brawlers can't sneak up on you. And again, the super of Bell makes it so that it counts tanks. So again, just so many different aspects of Bell you can use. And the good thing about the Hypercharge is you charge it so quick, the mark is actually really good. You know, getting a guaranteed mark, if you aim it correctly. You can miss sometimes. I've seen some people miss the mark like 3 or 4 times in a row here. But yeah, for the most part, if you have your Bell mark, you hit it most of the time, it's going to, you know, be good at finishing kills. It can be good at just hitting it onto a gem carrier, and you just focus the gem carrier the whole time here. And I think it's such a balanced Hypercharge that there's no complaint about it. I think Brawl Stars is doing really good with the Bell Hypercharge. Number 17 is going to be Rosa. Now, I think Rosa has a really good Hypercharge catered towards the brawler itself here. Rosa, if you guys don't know, with the Hypercharge, you get, you know, you get your shield as normal. You get more speed, you get more damage. And the Rosa shield actually slows down the enemy in the radius here. I think that's such a cool concept. And it's one of those brawlers where you can 1v3 with them as well. But the only thing is, obviously, if you play against a Quarter or Charlie, your Hypercharge gets completely cancelled out as well. And Rosa has a lot of HP, so you just end up feeding other brawlers Hypercharges as well, which is not ideal. But again, I think the concept of Rosa is so cool. And it's, you know, I think we need more of that for brawlers. I feel like some Hypercharges don't fit the concept of the brawler, but I think this Rosa having it is just amazing. Number 16 is going to be Primo. Now, Primo, in the meta right now, it's tend to be used to counter other tanks. It's really, really good tank counter, even though it's a tank itself. But yeah, it's a good tank counter because it stuns. You can throw them away, close the distance with your super. You can go fire to deal more damage. You can go speed star power to catch up the distance and make some crazy plays here. But yeah, the Hypercharge itself, you know, it's good when you jump on someone and it goes up instead of going away from you. I think that's a cool mechanic. That means you can go the fire star power with Primo, which does more damage, helps you get more kills. Normally you go the speed star power, so when you knock them back, you catch up to them. So I think the Hypercharge is a cool addition. So you can go the build with the fire, which I do like a lot. You know, I think dealing damage, finishing off kills is very, very nice. Number 15 is going to be Spike. Now, obviously, number 15 means it's bang in the middle. And I think Spike is the perfect brawler for that. I think Spike is the most balanced brawler in the game, and it always has been. I think the Hypercharge is the most balanced in the game here in terms of it's not too strong, it's not too good. I think it's in the right spot, and Spike perfectly represents that. Fang is going to be 14 on this list here. Now, Fang has dropped us quite a lot. If you told me in like 2-3 months ago that Fang was going to be 14, that would be crazy, because yeah, Fang super with the Hypercharge goes through walls. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Even on ladder sometimes when I play against Fang, it's just super strong and you can't do anything against it. But yeah, they've obviously tweaked it quite a lot. You get your Hypercharge a lot less frequently. I think that's one of the main things they've done. But I think once you do get your Hypercharge, it's really good. Again, Fang is good against not long range brawlers, like medium range brawlers. Tanks, you charge your super a lot as well. You just need to play against something that charges your Hypercharge a lot. And once you get your Hypercharge, you should be able to team wipe easily if you play it correctly and play off your teammates as well. So yeah, that's why Fang is going to be 14 on this list. Number 13 is going to be BB. Now, I would rank BB a lot higher because it's one of the best highest brawlers you can get. It has a lot of HP. The speed is crazy as well. But again, let's focus on the mode heist. It's so good. But the thing is, when you pop Hypercharge with BB, the bubble splits and you can't get a good angle with it. You can't get as much value. It's better to pop your Hypercharge after you use the bubble on the safe, for example, because you can do like the one ways with the BB, or like left and right, one of those here. But yeah, when it goes, it's gonna split, and the split is not good. You're not gonna get as much damage as well. So yeah, BB's Hypercharge is very good for killing though. You can get some crazy kills. You can cycle as many bubbles as possible. And heist, you don't want to be using it as much as well. So yeah, that's gonna be why BB's gonna be so low. If it wasn't like that, I would put BB around top 10. I think that's being a good mark for BB. Number 12 is going to be Lou. Now I think Lou's Hypercharge is completely broken in terms of the Hypercharge itself. But yeah, the reason why Lou is on this list, like a bit lower than it should be, is because Lou is just not meta. And for the most part, it's quite hard to get Hypercharge nowadays. You're playing against brawlers like Mr. P, you got Stu, you know, you're going to be on an open map. People go like Griff B, Griff Piper against a Bell. And like these brawlers, you don't farm Hypercharge against. And yeah, it's similar to the concept of Shelly, for example. And what's the other brawler? I can't remember the other brawler is. But yeah, like, it's not a tank meta, so against a non-tank meta, you're not going to get much value as you should do. And I think they've nerfed the Lu Hypercharge a couple times, so you don't get it as frequently. But yeah, Lu not being meta is going to be harming this Hypercharge as well. But I think the Hypercharge is completely broken, and that's why it's a lot higher than it should be on this list. Number 11 is going to be Cord. Now, this is one of my most played and favorite brawlers in the game. I think it's so unique, it's so high skill cap, and the Hypercharge is, I think it's good. I think the brawler being good itself is doing really well with it, but I think this Hypercharge has a lot of potential to take over games here. For example, I think in a competitive game, I have the Hypercharge, and if you know you go super someone and you can kill them, you can try and do like a fadeaway, and if with, you know, some communication or like some game awareness, you know where the other person's going to be, so you can like fade away, kill the other person because they're extremely slowed, and then you fade away onto the next person and just land on them when you get out the realm and kill them as well. I think I've done that in a competitive match, and it's just super unique. I think this Hypercharge has a lot of potential to make some crazy plays. And yeah, I think the brawler itself is just high skill cap. That's why the Hypercharges also requires a bit of skill. Now, number 10, this is going to be our top 10 now. So where it gets a bit spicy and a bit close, I think. All these brawlers can be anywhere on this list, but this is how I see them as. Number 10 is going to be Colette. Now, I think Colette is such a good brawler. I think it's well-rounded. It's a good tank counter, and it's good against mid-range brawlers like Jesse and Griff is what I tend to pick the most against it. But yeah, I think the Hypercharge rate is absolutely crazy. I think you get it super, super quick here. You can get it mostly twice in a game here, which is, I think, is ridiculous. And I would say Colette's Hypercharge is the best in heist. Obviously, if you have the Hypercharge super and land it completely, it does 25% per super, and I think that's crazy. If you intervene, if you have someone hitting the safe with you, like in terms of like if there's a brawler on the safe and you hit them, you get half your super back, 2 more shots, and you do 50% with 2 Hypercharge Colette supers in the span of 10 seconds. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. That's why we're going to be putting Colette in number 10. Number 9 is going to be Buzz, and I think Buzz has one of the most unique Hypercharges. At the time when they first released it, it was completely broken. Like, you just get unlimited stuns, you don't lose your super or anything. But here they've tweaked it, and I think the tweak is perfect. I don't think it's too OP. I don't think it's underwhelming. I think this helped Buzz like advance up the meta quite a lot here. I feel like Buzz was a bit underwhelming for the most part. But yeah, this Hypercharge made him very good here. It's a kind of high skill cap. If you know how to like insta stun lock someone, if you just keep supering onto the walls rather than the opponent, it's very unique, and you get a lot more value onto it. It's high skill cap, that's why it's going to be a little bit lower on the list here. Because yeah, the Hypercharge is tough to play. But once you do master it, you can make some crazy plays and push trophies very, very easily. Number 8 is going to be Nita. Now, Nita is going to be, I think, lower than expected here. I think that all the other brawlers on this list are just better than Nita. But yeah, Nita is very, very meta right now due to the map changing. They're being a little bit more medium to short ranged here. And I think Nita has the quickest Hypercharge rate in the game. I'm not quite sure, but I feel like you get the Nita Hypercharge really, really quickly. But for the most part, I feel like the bear feels a little bit, I don't know, underwhelming when you place it here, or else this would be a lot higher. The bear's broken if you're into the right matchup. But again, if you don't have gadgets, for example, the shield gadget, the bear just gets absolutely shredded still because, you know, it's just a big brawler that's easy to hit. You just need to burst it a couple of times and it goes down here. And yeah, that's why I think Nita's a bit underwhelming with a Hypercharge. Still top 10 though, because it's so easy to charge. And into the right matchup, you're going to be giving enemies a super tough time. Number 7 is going to be Jackie. Now, I think this Hypercharge is ridiculous in terms of the fact that the slow radius when you pop the Hypercharge is so crazy. And the stat boost as well you get, you know, the speed boost is exactly what Jackie needs. Again, these are one of the Hypercharges similar to Rosa, which caters to the brawler so well. Something to close the distance, and I think this Hypercharge does it. And yeah, I think obviously Jackie's still underwhelming. You have little to no range here, so you can easily get caught out. Again, Charlie Super, Cord Realm completely stuns out the Hypercharge as well. That's why, again, tank Hypercharges can be a little bit, you know, a bit hit or miss sometimes. But for the most part, this Hypercharge concept is amazing, suited for the brawler, and that's why it's number 7. Number 6 is going to be Dynamite. Now, Dynamite is one of the most skillful brawlers in the game. It's very hard to play, especially the higher you get in trophies. You're going to get players who know how to dodge these attacks here. But again, once you take over with Dynamite care, you get a stun, you get your Hypercharge. The Hypercharge is ridiculous. You can chain it so easily, guys. It's one of the most chainable Hypercharges in the game here. You can keep cycling. I think if you land a super, you get your super back already, and you can just keep doing it. And then the explosion radius after is very hard to juke as well. So yeah, when you get this Hypercharge, you can try and get yourself and set up for a team wipe very easily. Number 5 is going to be Edgar. Now, Edgar is going to be very easy to play, I'd say. I don't think it's too skillful. I think if you know what to jump on for the most part, it's going to be very easy to charge a Hypercharge. And once you get it, You just cycle super after super after super, and I think it's a good concept for the brawler. I think the brawler without the hypercharge is completely useless and only good into certain matchups, but I think the hypercharge makes it so that you close the gap a little bit. The brawler is not going to be as bad as it is. I think Edgar is a pretty balanced brawler. You can pick it sometimes, you can't. And again, it has that skill cap element of being able to know when to jump on someone, when to pop hypercharge, who to cycle it on. I think that's what makes the brawler good, and that's why it's going to be top 5. Number 4 is going to be Max. I think Max is an amazing brawler in the meta. It can get countered quite easily though if you have a little bit more of HP. But I think that Max hypercharge, you get it quite frequently as well, and the DPS when you get the Max hypercharge is absolutely ridiculous. You just shred through people, tank can't stand a chance. Any long range, you just full clip them in one shot pretty much. It's crazy. And I think there's a glitch going on where if you stand together and you pop hypercharge and you collect all the power-ups, your supercharge rate goes up by 75%, which means if you hit like one clip maybe, you get your super back, and I think that's ridiculous. I don't know when they'll change that, but that glitch definitely needs to go. Number 3 is going to be Jesse. Now we all know that Jesse's hypercharge got a little bit of buff. You get your hypercharge a lot frequently, and you do. And one easy matchup, guys, I'm telling you, one easy matchup. You play against one tank, one brawler that's medium range that just needs to run up to Jesse, and you feed the hypercharge. The game's over. You get your turret set up behind the wall. You have the heal star power. You heal up the turret. You slow enemies if they come close to it. The brawler takes over, and it's pretty much hard to counter it. You always need to go a brawler that counters Jesse in the draft or on ladder, because yeah, if you play against a Jesse and you have nothing to take out the turret, that turret will just absolutely shred you, and you can't do anything about it. Number 2 is going to be Leon. Now number 2 and number 1 is very close. I think it can go either way here, but yeah, number 2 is going to be Leon. I think Leon dropped off in the meta quite a lot here, but yeah, once you get this hypercharge, which is a lot less frequent, they nerfed the hypercharge rate quite a lot, and you don't get it as much. But when you do get it, you completely take over games. Again, in the quickfire modifier, in ranked, it's probably the best brawler in the game. And in general, if Leon was a lot better, this hypercharge would easily be number 1, because yeah, this hypercharge will make this brawler completely broken, best brawler in the game, like it used to be in the meta. Now, first on this list, guys, is going to be Sandy. Now, I think Sandy is in a very good place in the meta. I think it has the quickest after Nita in terms of hypercharge rate. You get your hypercharge before your second Sandy super, so I think it lines up pretty much perfectly there. And yeah, I think Sandy is just ridiculous. You pop your super down, you silence the enemies for 0.5 seconds, which may seem a bit short, but it's a lot longer than it actually seems. So you get free attacks in, they can't do anything, they can't stun you off as well, and giving your teammates a speed boost is ridiculous. You can make so many good combos with this comp here. And I think Sandy is just so versatile and counters a lot of tanks if you pair it well with something. Counters all the medium range brawler, and then with the hypercharge, with the speed boost, you can counter long range brawlers as long as you know how to get like a max speed or something to get your super charged up as well. But yeah, that's why I think Sandy's gonna be number 1, and that's gonna be concluding the hypercharge tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let your suggestions in the comment below what you would do, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.